I could post a beat to Instagram. I want to sell this beat. I want to go crazy with it. I have $100 advertising budget. All right, rappers, you want this beat? Share this. Not only will you get paid every time you share my beat, but you'll get entered in a drawing to win a free beat from me or something like that. And then it just goes everywhere. And
that's exactly how it works. So you will get the
That's crazy. What's going down? It's an At Odds podcast. I am dying out here in the Midwest with the heat wave. I think the East Coast is experiencing that as well. I don't know about the West Coast and where you're at, Aaron. Technically, you're in the Midwest unless you're in Atlanta right now. I can't keep track.
I'm in Austin, and I just can't imagine that the Midwest heat wave is hotter than Austin on a regular day.
It's a different kind of heat, and it's an entirely different environment. We're breaking records.
What is it, like 92?
What? Yeah, but it's spring. I mean, in summer we get into the hundreds. It's just that they're anticipating it getting a lot worse out here. So
I didn't know you got into the hundreds.
Oh yeah, I mean we're on the same longitudinal line as like New York and cities like that. So as hot as it gets there, it can get hot here. But anyway, speaking of hot, if you have music that you are hot to release, I had an artist reach out to me the other day, and they were like, "My problem is I have songs, I just don't know how to get them on the platforms. I don't have blah blah blah." I'm like, "Look, tolost.com. Use the code ATODDS. Free music distribution for 3 full months. You can upload a lot of music. If you're just sitting on, hundreds of songs or even 20 songs, no risk. Just use the code ATODDS. Use Lost distribution. Get it on Spotify. Get it on Apple Music. Get it on Deezer. Get it on all the top platforms. And even if you decide that Lost isn't for you, you can cancel and your music will stay up and you won't be charged. So it's a win-win. And speaking of winning, we have Brandon Torrey today. His state just won. His city just won. He's in a winning mood. How are you feeling, sir? It's been about a year, 2 years since you've last spoken with us?
It feels like it's been about a decade, but yeah, probably about a year at this point. And shout out to C's. Boston is up right now, and good to be here. Thank you.
For sure. So we had to have Brandon back because CEO, founder of Formless. We'll allow him to do another introduction on what exactly Formless is. But just kind of been tracking what they've been doing on social media. It seems like there's been a lot of new developments. So we wanted to have a refreshed conversation on exactly what is happening so that artists, can tap in and take advantage. But, let's start from just kind of what Formless is and maybe a brief, because I know we went deeper into the history, but maybe just bring people up to speed on what Formless is. And then we'll jump into kind of what you guys are doing now.
100%. Yeah, I want to start off by saying thank you to you guys. The first podcast we did was actually one of the biggest spikes that we've had, and a lot of the people that joined the community are still around. So that was a big moment for us. We really appreciate the support that you guys provided. So a bit about Formless. So I grew up very, very passionate about technology, but also hip hop. Just where I grew up, hip hop was the language. It was the way we connected, the way we spoke to each other. But this was like the early 90s, early 2000s, and like tech was not cool at that time. And so me being at the intersection of these two different cultures, I couldn't really find a way to be myself. And the word formless was the way that I identified. It was this idea that we can do multiple things. We can have multiple dreams and we can have a formless identity. And so I went on to become an engineer in big tech. Also at the same time was an artist, still am an artist, but was a full-time artist and worked with people like Timbaland, got signed by Dallas Austin, had some success. But ran into a problem that I think a lot of creators have had on the internet, which is just the monetization and the growth and the distribution. And so I started thinking about how to use technology to solve that problem. And we designed a service that we call Share. And it's Share technology. And it gives artists, producers, creators the ability to leverage cutting edge tech like blockchain, but in new ways, and to build community and get distribution in a way that I think is pretty exciting. And so some of the stuff that we've seen on social, I'm sure we'll dive into that. But we basically have just been working directly with creators, brands, and other people to show them how to leverage this technology to achieve their goals in the creator economy.
So I think one of the ways to like really bring it home, at least for me, is to like talk through an example of like, okay, this is the artist you work with, this is what they were trying to do, and this is how we executed. Is there a quick example that you can kind of walk through that people be like, oh, okay, I get it. That's how I learn best. I get it.
Yeah, 100%. I think the first one, actually, Aaron was in on this, so it's kind of dope. The first one was my own song. It was called Money Can't Buy Love. And what I did was I partnered with Symphonic Distribution and I partnered with Dallas Austin, and we created a smart contract.
We'll talk about that later, but I ain't gonna take it personally.
We can talk about that. I would love to do it with 2 Lost as well, but I'm just making my rounds. So we partnered with a couple of different companies, and we created a smart contract where we split up the revenue that was going to be made on this song called Money Can't Buy Love. So we did a percentage for Dallas Austin, a percentage for Symphonic, but then I took the remaining percentage and I went on Twitter and I did a live Twitter space. And I said, anybody who's on this space right now, and about 200 people joined. I said, anybody who's on this space, there's a link. You can tap the link and you will join this revenue share smart contract. And I'll explain what a smart contract is. But you'll join this revenue share smart contract in real time. And then instantly, we'll all make money together tomorrow as the song generates revenue. Now, of course, the question is, where does the revenue come from? So for this particular drop, and we have other ways that the revenue can be generated, but for this particular drop, the revenue was from direct to consumer purchases of the song. So I charged for the song. I had this, what we call multiplayer revenue share smart contract that had a couple companies. It also had a bunch of different people in the contract. And when the song came out, everybody started to talk about it. Everybody started to retweet it. Symphonic retweeted it, of course. All the people that were in the Twitter space started to retweet it. And, I've been an artist for over 10 years. I never had a feeling like that where it felt like this multiplayer thing, where it felt like, oh, we're all on the same team. And, of course, I know you guys are familiar with street teams and that type of stuff. It felt like that, but it felt like a new way of doing it, like a new technology, a digitally native way to do it.
How did you decide like how to divvy up the splits? Like what, who got?
Yeah, it was. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. The first one I would say was the most kind of simple, where we just use the strategy of, okay, it's almost like a distribution deal with these 2 companies. So that's normally like an 80-20 split. Let's do 10-10 with Symphonic and Dallas Austin Distribution. Let's take the remaining 80, make sure my producer gets paid. So I think I did 10 for him. He agreed to that. That was fine. And then the rest was 1 point per person that joined the splits in real time on the Twitter space. And so that gave you this pie that had like a mix of, well, I want businesses to be incentivized. I want my producers and collaborators to be incentivized. And then I just want my fans and everybody else to feel like they're in and feel like they're down on what we're doing. So we did that. And what's cool about it is based on the technology, because we use these smart contracts, people could enter into this financial agreement in real time. So it wasn't like you had to wait 3 months to get paid. We all started getting paid instantly. And I also got the email addresses of everybody who was in it, which means I can do it again over and over again. So I took this example and I put it on Instagram, not thinking it was going to be that crazy. I just wanted to explain it. And it went viral. It got like 12,000 shares, over 250,000 views within a week. Everybody started asking me like, yo, what is this? What is this? And I was saying, oh, this is what I've been trying to explain. It's this idea of a multiplayer digital economy. And from there, and we'll get into some of the case studies, from there, we just started to think about, well, maybe this is bigger than direct-to-consumer purchases, because we all know there's friction in that, right? Like trying to get people to buy songs. I think that's cool and it can be cool, but it's probably a little bit limiting, especially for certain artists. So we started to experiment with how do we do the same thing, but without the direct-to-consumer piece? How do we do this on any revenue stream? And that's when we started to see these really explosive results with people getting lots of shares and lots of this kind of multiplayer engagement.
Dope.
Wait, so how do you do that then? Because it like from my perspective, I'm always coming from a producer perspective, but you brought up producers. You were signed to Dallas Austin, who is a producer, one of the biggest producers. And so my issues with navigating the current music distribution landscape, Content ID, getting beats stolen, getting beats used, but never getting cut in to any of the equity of the song, that kind of thing. Yep. And no matter what artist proposes as a change, they always put themselves central to that.
For sure.
And then when you look at streaming services, all these other services, it's always Content ID, especially YouTube, all these platforms, all the revenue generated on these various platforms is always based on single ownership. It's not collaborative at all. So how do you and your company, how do you break into the current structure that's so limiting, that completely discourages collaboration, that discourages multi-ownership? How does that work? How does it fit into the big picture?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And this is why the term smart contract, I think, is so important. So just for the viewers who may not be familiar, in the music industry, we deal with contracts all the time, whether it's a sync deal to get your music synced, whether it's the terms of service that you go through with Two Lost or with Dallas Austin Distro or anybody else. There's always a contract. You may not know it's a contract, but there's a contract that you're entering into. And part of the issue with these contracts is that they are controlled by the corporation that you're working with to distribute the song. So in your case with Content ID, there's some implicit agreement that you're entering into with YouTube. And you don't have any say in that contract. You have no negotiation power with those contracts, especially with these huge corporations. So the idea is, okay, well, what if we could create a new contract where the artist, the producer, the fans, the collaborators, the community could actually make the rules and modify these contracts, but without a corporation having to be involved, without the government having to be involved, and without having to hire lawyers to do these things. So this multiple ownership thing that you mentioned, I think that's probably the most important core concept here, which is, okay, if I want 1,000 people to be on my team, and of course the producer is one of those people, how do I enter into agreements with them fast enough where we're all going to get paid in real time and without me having to ask YouTube to change the policy so that this person gets paid in the way that I think they should get paid? And that's that's the fundamental innovation of what a smart contract is. Now, what we've seen in the media is this idea of, well, let's sell these tokens. Let's sell these NFTs. Let's sell these things. And it turns out those tokens are also smart contracts, but they're just a different kind of smart contract. So we don't really use that kind of smart contract. But in your case, Payne, let's say you have a revenue stream that's coming from YouTube, and right now that revenue is being distributed through some type of royalty accounting mechanism, probably YouTube's royalty accounting or like Two Lost's royalty accounting system. Well, that's the part that essentially can get, I don't want to say replaced because I'm not saying that that's going to go away, but it can get augmented because now you can pop in a smart contract that can actually be the receiver of that revenue, and you can dictate the terms of how that money flows. And the only reason that's possible is because we have this new idea of this programmable digital money, which is crypto. And so that's the cool part about crypto. I'll pause there in case you got questions.
Well, does that interface with the existing revenue streams? Like with Spotify, I make a beat, someone puts it on Spotify, they're generating money, but they haven't cut me in. So we need the smart contracts to serve as a mechanism for fair splits. How does that operate?
Yeah, great question. So I think this comes down to, all right, so we did this example. It was direct to consumer transactions, but what's the bigger picture in terms of the revenue sources for this multi-ownership? And I'd say I would divide it into three categories. So the first is direct to consumer transactions. That's the case we've already covered. The second is the idea of, well, I actually can put things out for free and I can sponsor it as a part of my marketing budget. So we did a case study with a brand called Kickback Boston where we said, let's make an Instagram post multi-ownership so that everybody who reshares the post on Instagram can enter into a smart contract and we'll all make money together as the impressions go up on the Instagram post. And so we actually took our own marketing budget, money that we otherwise would have spent on ads or something else, and said, no, we're just going to use this to pay the collective as the views go up on the post. And in one night, the post got 1,400 shares and the account's very small. So that's what we started to see. Oh, you can actually go viral by using your budget to incentivize a collective versus paying an intermediary like an advertising platform. So that's bucket number two. Bucket number three, what you're talking about, Payne, is a little bit more of the bigger picture, which is like, how do I plug this into the existing revenue streams that are already pumping billions of dollars through the internet, like Spotify, like YouTube ads? And that's where a lot of our development is going now, because you can do integrations through platforms like Stripe to connect those revenue streams to this kind of digital economy. So that piece, bucket number three, I'd say is still under development, but that's the way we see this going. So think Shopify, think YouTube ad money, think Spotify ad money. All that stuff needs to go into these multi-ownership contracts where you can pay not only your collaborators, but consumers who you want to be on your team to incentivize distribution. And then to your question, Dame, about like the strategy, given all this flexible design space, now you can come up with different ways that you want to partition the revenue based on what your goal is.
Right. So,
but what you're saying is, sorry, Dan, but just to make it clear, because this is a really amazing thing you just said. And it gives me a lot of hope. You're saying this is possible. This is on the horizon where you can actually supersede all the unfairness that's going on and all these systems that make it so that the music business remains unfair, single owner. And this technology can actually be fit into the current systems.
100%. And I'll flip the question back too, because some of this comes down to companies like Too Lost, because the distribution company actually does a lot of the royalty accounting. So you actually can fix this without changing anything on the Spotify side if you just do the integration at the distribution side. So
okay.
But that's ultimately what I was going to say. Like, I mean, it's dependent on everybody playing ball if they want to. I mean, and
yes,
like
exactly.
at the moment, and you know, Too Lost, like on Too Lost platforms, like you can split payments however you want to split them. Obviously, I know that there's a difference because you're saying, you know, maybe because I think right now, I don't think we can give fraction of a percent. I think it's just 1%. I think we have to give 1% at least. You know, so maybe there's more people you can split it amongst using the share technology. Would it still, if we're paying out monthly, are you getting paid daily? You're not getting paid daily anymore through share, are you? Or
So now we're going into the future, but let's talk about, because this is the stuff we're building now. So let's say on the Too Lost side, if you wanted to offer real-time payments, right, even though your royalty accounting happens on a monthly basis, you actually can do that with share technology, because we can collateralize it with digital money so that people are getting their stuff in real time, even though the relationship between share and Too Lost is actually a little bit more on the back end. And also, to your point about the fractionalization, the idea is, like, yes, you can already go on a DistroKid or Too Lost and you can say, okay, here are my collaborators. Maybe there's 100 of them. But that's not really what I see. What I see is the future is 10,000, and they're transferable, and it's all liquid, and they happen in real time, not at upload time. The song's already out, and now I'm incentivizing a behavior, and you can join. So that's the stuff that we're actually doing with shared technology. And to your point about everybody playing ball, you're absolutely right. In order to do the part that Payne's talking about, that's actually a little bit more of a B2B integration. For the stuff that we've done on the direct-to-consumer stuff, that's like directly between the consumer and the artist. But we are now seeing that with the APIs and the infrastructure that's available, it's not that far off to make that next step to where we can integrate with some of the existing stuff that works within the music industry. And that's the piece that I'm excited about.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead, Aaron. You haven't said anything yet. Go ahead.
I'm understanding this even more now. And you know, I think we are all consistently kind of like talking to you, DMing you, texting you like, yo, explain this, you know, because you're like so intelligent and I'm like always on your page trying to learn. But I feel like because you're a creator, I want to trust what you're saying so much more because you're creating solutions for creators. Whereas a lot of the tech companies and tech people who come into the music space are like, we have a solution, and it's not a solution. It just complicates things more. Right. You have a complicated, I guess, barrier of entry as far as understanding because you're going completely against what has been. But once you can assimilate the understanding into the current music system, it's actually pretty simple, in my opinion. Yeah. However, I still have a couple of questions. So I just want to get some personal clarity because I do know that we are speaking a little bit more highly than I think everybody would be able to understand. And I don't mean to demean our audience. I just want to make sure that they get it too. So for one, going back to the first Payne question where he was talking about content ID, do you see share as a subcontract, or is this the predominant contract? Because again, if you're playing ball with the Spotify's, YouTube's, all that, can you explain that part to me? Because I know, like you said, if Too Lost is willing to play ball, or, you know, you did it with Symphonic, love Symphonic. Tell me how that works from the distributor and then the DSP and then your smart contract. Can you explain that in like layman's terms to me?
Yes. So I think it may help if we just talk about like royalty accounting just in general. So I'll talk about it from an artist perspective. So when I signed a distribution deal with Dallas Austin Distribution, and he was just starting up his distribution company, they didn't have royalty accounting services. So that meant that I would have to figure out how to actually take the money that I was making from DAD and then administer the payments to my collaborators. Now, they got that worked out, but for people who aren't aware, when you work with a distribution company, one of the primary services that they're doing is they're collecting the revenue from the DSP and then facilitating the royalty payments to all the collaborators. Okay. So that's part one. So the question is, given that architecture, that system, how do you innovate on the contract that's happening behind the scenes so that we can get more flexibility as creators to do whatever we want to do? And what I don't want to go too far ahead because some of the stuff is still like we're trying to build it out and work with companies like yours to make it correct. But what we've identified is that for direct consumer revenue sources or for things that I'm selling, like Shopify sales and those things, it's actually very straightforward because I can just do an integration with their software. They have APIs and things like that. For a company like Two Lost or DAD or Symphonic or those other things, it depends on how your royalty accounting system is set up. But there is a way that you can actually buffer it so that instead of paying people monthly, you pay the technology layer, and our technology layer does it in real time. And the contract that we're actually using that people can enter into is almost like you said, a subcontract where we're saying, okay, there's a smart contract that's representative of this other contract that's between the distributor and the DSP, but let the smart contract take it from here. We'll do the integration where the revenue can flow into that. But because of that, now we can do these things like build all these incentives and make sure everybody gets paid and have real-time transferability of the co-ownership and the things that I did with Money Can't Buy Love. I don't want to skip too far ahead because that requires some integrations on the distributor side, but that is where this is headed, I would say.
Okay, that's very helpful. Second question is when you're doing the marketing budget, which is what I think the most recent time that I reached out to you was either right before Money Can't Buy Love or right after. Some it was around that time. And I saw, because you had done it with another creator before, or were you the first one?
So Money Can't Buy Love was first, and then we did Latasha. I believe you were in one of these smart contracts, was it?
Yeah. So Money Can't Buy Love, I was like, I think 103 or something like that. So I didn't get any shares, but yes, I was a part of and then I tweeted about it because I thought it was so cool. But then people started finding my tweet and then you used it in the campaign promo on Instagram. Yes. And literally I just kept getting tagged. Like I saw this because of you. And so it was really cool. I loved the creator economy aspect or like the share where everybody was participating. And I think it was maybe prior to that I had asked, maybe when you first made the announcement, like, okay, explain how this works. Like, where is the money coming from? And that's when you said, okay, we fronted the money for this. Or I think I might have asked that around the Latasha time. Yeah. And at first I was confused. And then me and Dame started talking about it. And I was like, wait, this is like a marketing budget instead of, and right. You have just explained that. So asking about that specific money piece, is this something that you put money into the contract? So then once it happens, it's distributed. Like, how does that work? I know with Facebook Ad Manager, it's like you put your card in, it runs the ads, and then it charges you. And then, there's this whole, there's this gate, which is super, it's weird to me that you can run the ads before the money is taken out, and I think they do that to make sure that everything, you know what I'm saying? Like that's something to me that's still surprising. It's like, I'm surprised they don't charge you ahead of time. Yeah. So I'm understanding even your contract, you're saying we pay out daily, even though the money may be flowing monthly because of the way that contract is set up. But tell me about the money aspect. Yeah. Are you putting how, I just want to know how you interface the money with the actual.
I'll break it down. So first off, Dame actually gave me the marketing term because I was DMing Dame like, yo, check out what we're doing. And he was like, wait, is it marketing budget? I was like, oh, let me just start saying that. So yes, it's a marketing budget because I was calling it decentralized advertising. So I have to get some context on crypto. I don't want to go super crypto heavy, but I'll get some context on crypto. So crypto basically just means I can take my United States dollars and I can purchase an equivalent value in digital currency. And there's a couple different kinds of digital currency. There's Ethereum, there's Bitcoin, there's one called Polygon. Now, what's nice about this is once you have this digital currency, it's basically it can move very fast. I can basically just write a program that just moves the money. So in the Latasha case, our company, Formless, we already have a bunch of digital money that's sitting on the blockchain. Okay. Now that money has real value. It's not some fake token. It's money that's really, equivalent to the United States dollars. And we went to Latasha and said, like, we would love to sponsor your song Wave as a Twitter post that's multi-ownership. We want to let everybody who retweets it co-own this post. And as the views go up, we will use the digital money that we already have on the blockchain. And in real time, every time the views go up, we will send a transaction so that people are getting paid in real time. And so that's what was happening. So as the views went up, and I think within the first, in her case, it was like 100 minutes, all 100 were claimed, and it got like 50,000 impressions before we ran out of the budget that we had allocated for it, or before we ran out of the impressions that we said we were going to hit. And so as that's happening, literally these little microtransactions are just firing off. It's just little lightning bolts of money on the internet. And people are getting push notifications and emails say, oh, you just got paid. Now what's crazy is they're not making that much money. So people making, I just got 50 cents. I got $1. But they're going crazy. Like, yo, this is crazy. I can't even believe I'm getting paid. It wasn't even that they were getting that much money. It was just like, yo, I've never felt the experience of being rewarded for something that I did as a community effort. So now the question is, all right, cool. I got this digital money on the blockchain, but how do I actually cash that out and use it? And so in our software, there's a button you can press where we have a partnership with a company called Beam, and you can just enter your debit card or your bank account information, and it will cash you out same day. So all the transactions are in real time. They're all in crypto, which is this digital money, but you can instantly cash it out to your debit card so that there's no question about, is this real money at the end of the day?
What was the impact on that song for Latasha in terms of just that those shares translating into something quantifiable, some kind of success for her?
So it wasn't a Spotify link. It was specifically the Twitter post. So we took the song, we turned it into a little video on Twitter, and our goal was to get it to have a lot of views on Twitter. It got 50,000 views and about 3,000 engagements in about 12 hours. So if you look at the benchmarks of how her stuff performs, it was one of her highest performing posts.
Was the goal to do it on Twitter because Twitter monetizes the blue checks? Or is that what that was? It's like a multi effort kind of exchange.
We basically been we wanted to try different platforms, and we wanted to look at like where each creator was the strongest. And Latasha's really strong on Twitter. She tweets a lot. She has a really vibrant community, and Twitter's nice because it has reposts. So we knew that we could use that to gamify the engagement that we wanted.
Have you done it where you have an equal budget on the share side as just a regular Facebook ad, and just kind of see what the results are with the same budget, what went further, what are the differences? Obviously, you're getting your community involved. There's a little bit more excitement. It's more fun doing it that way. But just in terms of the impact or the number of views,
100%. That's actually what we talk a lot about internally. That's why I was using the word decentralized advertising, because we started to notice as we were doing it that the cost per click or the cost per engagement was actually lower than what you would pay. What we have seen is that it's more expensive for views. So traditional advertising, you can get bulk views cheaper than this model. But in terms of engagement and direct email addresses from people, this is far cheaper, because to join the splits, you give up your email address. So the customer acquisition cost is actually lower than traditional advertising.
Yeah. And do you worry about, if this thing, if do you worry about if this thing kind of catches fire, like any type, I don't know what Facebook can do. Obviously there's going to be some response to if everybody starts running campaigns this way and using their ad budgets differently. What's the response from Facebook, or can they do anything?
They might try to use the algorithm to de-incentivize these types of activations, right? They've done that before, where it's like, oh, if your post says link in bio, then we won't show it to people. Right. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in some capacity, but I think the people want this. I think the number one problem on the internet right now is the algorithm that's making it so difficult to grow. And I think if we can work together and use multi-ownership to beat the algorithm, I think that's just the next iteration of things.
Well, let me ask you this then. In terms of beating the algorithm, I guess this is more of what I was getting at. When everybody shared this post, right? And in your experience with these case studies, when people go crazy sharing these posts, at some point does the algorithm kick in and rather than just rely on the people that are participating because they're getting paid, does this actually translate into fan discovery where you're reaching new people and they're, coming back, listening on other platforms? They're transferring that energy to other
that's a dope question. I think
places.
It's a dope question. I think one piece is it really helps if the art is fire. So like if the song's fire, the visual's fire, like the same stuff that applies to regular social still applies here. So that's like foundational. But then when you add the multiplayer piece, what we've seen is that it definitely helps to kickstart the algorithm. We want to do some experiments to push it further in terms of the number of splits. So I think the highest we've done is 200. And what typically happens is within the first hour, all of those are gone. Then people read it. They're like, oh, I can get in. And then they look at it and say, oh, I can't get in. So I'm going to just let me pass because all the slots are gone. So now we want to push it further to 200, 500,000, get more people into it. But it's a good question. It's hard to quantify how much of that is coming from the algorithm doing like a secondary boost versus how much of it is coming from the initial people retweeting. But we have seen a really high retention rate. So what typically happens is everybody who joins on one contract wants to join the next one. So you almost get this kind of this race where everybody wants to get on the next one. So the question is, can you push it a little bit further to make sure there's room for new people to get that new discovery that you talked about?
Yeah. Could this work for YouTube? Because I feel like YouTube is, especially as a producer, it's not just me. A lot of producers are saying YouTube is now really coming down on beat channels. If you upload a beat for any number of reasons, the algorithm doesn't like it. There are links in the description that take a user outside of YouTube. Yeah. Beat videos tend to be shorter. There's less of a visual element, that kind of thing. So, YouTube wants retention. They want money. They want something that they can stuff with ads.
Exactly.
Could this work for something like that?
I think it can work. We've been talking to YouTubers. I actually did, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Curtis King. I did his YouTube channel yesterday, and some of this stuff came up. The main thing what you're getting at here is that all of these platforms, all these corporations are going to do whatever they can to keep you inside of their walled garden. So the minute you find something that works, they're going to say, okay, let's de-incentivize that. So I look at it, it's almost like a bank run. You got to get a loop that works. You got to get a community that's down, and then you got to use that budget to get everybody into your own ecosystem as fast as possible. And then once you do that, and you can have this incentive structure, it works on any platform. But you have to prioritize getting away from the vanity metrics of these platforms and getting these customers into your own ecosystem. And then you can, we're seeing a tremendous engagement rate just from email, from everybody who joined the splits on a prior contract. Just email everybody, send them a push notification, do those things. And then it doesn't matter what platform you tell them to go to engage.
That's what I was like having that whoa moment when you were talking, because I had the same question as Payne somewhat, where I was like, okay, well, I'm seeing this as quote unquote a traffic ad, a non-traditional traffic ad, but what do conversions look like? But I was like, this is about customer acquisition. Yeah. The conversion takes care of itself once you have their phone number, email, that's like, I'm in Austin right now. We talked about that. I'm doing a week's worth of programming for Juneteenth for a comtech company that I started here with my business partner. And it's like we've sold out every event that we've thrown since January, and we started the company in November. But it's because it's just it is a promo page, but we're promoting like social calendar, and people subscribe to the social calendar. So I have thousands and thousands and thousands of emails. And then if they come to an event, the platform that we use, we get their phone number. So it's like people who have pages who are 10, like literally 10 times our size, are hitting us to do promo because we're converting really well on socials, but also because we could just send one push notification to people's phone. And we're very intentional about protecting the integrity of what we send to our people because we want people to value what we're giving them. So we're only doing partnerships that we care about. But now we're starting to get into the corporate game, and it's like I can talk a way bigger game with them than when I had creators that had 100,000, 200,000. Like the brand deals that we're talking right now are astronomically larger. Whereas he has 250,000 followers and we have 2,000 emails. And now I'm like, I have a 15,000 emails. This is the click-through rate, but I also have 2,800 text, like phone numbers, and I know exactly where they are regionally, and we're geotagging these. You know what I'm saying? So like, as you were talking, I was like, oh my God, because customer acquisition, especially when you start getting into sales funnels, is the biggest need. And, you know, I like to treat music business as just business. That's the hard part with working with artists, is because they want to treat it like, they don't treat it like it's just business. So like customer acquisition, sales funnels, all these things, you're doing the sales funnel, like you said, you're gamifying it. You're doing it on platforms that people already understand, but you're offering something new. The return on investment, I'm now very much understanding, is way better than an ad. I think my mind is very much blown, and I'm very excited to see the future of this. And you had told me that, because I had asked you about Even. I was like, oh, so y'all like Even? And you were like, Even is for, you know, like maybe like music creators or other digital creators. And you said, we're going to be like Amazon. And I could not understand it. And now I get it, because anybody can use this, like whether you're a cleaning service or if you are a speaker or whatever type of business is, this is going to, and then even collaboration is going to be made so much more simple, but way more impactful. A collab post now, and I see it now because I see why y'all were doing collab posts. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop talking. I'm like really excited. This is so cool.
Thank you. That means so much to hear that. I mean, even shout out to Even. I think that's another revenue source. It's like there's a lot of different revenue sources on the internet. Let's decentralize them. Let's build community. And to your point about music as a business, that was the main problem I had as an artist, which was, okay, I know how to get 1 million streams. I've had 1 million streams on a song, but I also know what it cost me to get that 1 million streams. And that's the problem, trying to do that over and over and over again. And so it really was this idea of how do you get that customer acquisition cost down and make it so that I actually own the data? Because if I don't own the data, like you said, I can't actually monetize that when it's go time. And I got friends who have events, who have brands, like you said, they got email lists, 10,000, 15,000 people. They could pack out a venue more than artists I know that got way more followers.
Yeah. So are you also building out, and it might already exist already, are you also building out the infrastructure to actually communicate with your fans on the Formless platform? Can you, or do you just take the emails and you communicate through MailChimp or your, you know, whatever email service that you use or text service that you use, or can you do it all on the Formless platform?
Dope question. You can do it all on the Formless platform. So we have push notifications now. So you can send a push notification to everybody who's ever transacted with your stuff or joined splits on your stuff. And you also just get access to the email. So if you want to take those emails and put them in your own MailChimp, you can do that too.
And so Formless is currently an app that's available on the Apple Store that people can download right now?
So it's what's called a progressive web app. It's new technology from Apple where you don't have to download it from the App Store. But if you add it to your home screen directly from the browser, you can still get push notifications from it, which is fire because it means people can click links and get into these things very easily without having to deal with the App Store, but you still get that communication level.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. So I could post a beat to Instagram. I want to sell this beat. I want to go crazy with it. I have $100 advertising budget.
Yeah.
Everyone that shares it gets a little piece of that $100.
Yes.
And I just target, I like the way I'm envisioning it, I would just target rappers and just, you know, have some kind of caption on this video and say, all right, rappers, you want this beat, share this. And not only will you get paid every time you share my beat, but you'll get entered in a drawing to win a free beat from me or something like that. And then it just goes everywhere, and that's that.
That's it. That's exactly how it works. So you will get the
That's crazy.
Yeah.